Hello, everyone, and welcome to Voices. Tonight, where I'm going to be talking about what's in a name, pretty much glamish, just random stuff tonight. So I wanted to just start out by saying the premise for this whole discussion was as was having a conversation with a friend, and somehow or another, we just got to talking about the different names that people use to describe their grandmothers or the nicknames that they give to their grandmothers. And some of those names that came up, we were just talking about it. We were talking about grandma, nana, glam, granny, grand, ma dear, and then my favorite, glamma, or a woman with grandkids who is far too young and fabulous to be called grandma. Now, I know a lot of people who that fits, myself included. And there was some high discussion or some really lively discussion around the perception of the labels that we should be able to call ourselves. And it was all based upon whether or not we should be calling ourselves grandma as opposed to just grandma or grandmother. So we talked about the difference in the different labels, but I felt that people have different stereotypes that they have when they look at a specific person or a thing. And the thing of the whole matter is we actually need stereotypes to help us navigate the world in which we live. So first of all, I went to 3 different dictionaries. I first went to Merriam-Webster, I went to the Cambridge English Dictionary, and I went to the Collins English Dictionary to just look up the word stereotype in general so that I could actually get a true definition of what the word stereotype really meant. And what I found that was common in all of the definitions was that, well, first of all, it was a preconceived notion. That was the first thing. That it was secondarily a set idea that someone had about the way that something or someone should be. And then there was the Collins English Dictionary who said that it was a fixed general image. So the 3 things that I noticed in common is first of all, in order for something to even classify or be considered a stereotype, the person has a preconceived notion about the whole set idea and then general imagery around what they think that thing is going to look like. So when you talk about the whole concept of a grandparent, if somebody is thinking in their mind, they'll have a preconceived notion of what a grandmother should look like. They have set ideas about many of the characteristics, and I'll share some of those characteristics in a minute. And then that general image about what you should be looking like. So how you should be wearing your hair, whether or not you should wear makeup, how much makeup you should wear, the type of clothing that you should wear, whether or not you should wear heels. It even gets down to things as your physical appearance and how you can take care of yourself and what you should really look like, or what the expectation is of what someone looks like when they become a grandmother or a grandparent per se. What happens is people have these preconceived notions in their mind that they've learned from other images that they may have seen, which have come from other places in life, which may have been, it could have been TV shows, it could have been from family members, it could be books, it could be whatever it is, but it's all enveloped in something that's social, cultural, and it is a visual that sets limitations about the possibilities of how someone can act when they have that specific label given to them, or they reach a certain age threshold. That's what's even deeper about it. Is it's not necessarily a position in life as it is that people have preconceived notions about the label grandma, and then they attach your age to it, and then they automatically define or set limitations on the characteristics that you can display once you become a part of that particular group. All right, so then again, you have limitations on how you can present yourself in any context. And according to those preconceived notions, those set ideas, people have imagery again about the way that you can work and what you can do and what you can say and how you can be in the whole thing. And like I was saying, is that we know that a stereotype has a really big general definition, and it's not taken into considerations people's individual cultural or social differences that they might have about how this set idea plays out in behavioral form, what the characteristics look like. So for example, what the nicknames are that you can actually call yourself, whether or not it's acceptable to you is all that really matters. Because of the fact that we don't necessarily always investigate a word or something and we start using it. I always feel like before I start really using something or when we were talking about it, I just felt compelled to go back and look it up and really dig deep into see why we attach labels to certain things, and then we actually expect people to behave it, and then we're disappointed when they don't because we're not taking into consideration diversity. So a stereotype in a nutshell is nothing but an oversimplified generalization about anything that you have. And particularly when you're talking about a grandmother, you're talking about a woman of a certain age, generally someone who is over 50. Those particular generalizations could either be positive or negative, but most of the time, what people do is they use those in order to make sense of the world around them. You know, let's face it, people, we live in a coffee society. You cannot go in and just order a cup of coffee in any place without losing your mind because there's so many different variables that go into making a cup of coffee now. When I was growing up, it was basically you had Folgers, Maxwell House, and you might have had Sanka, which was decaf. So that was the limitations. I didn't have a nervous breakdown when I was trying to navigate the world. So it's like with all the big things that are going on in the world, especially when you have to go in and order coffee, which seems to be the biggest highlight of people's day, or the biggest horror that they got to have for a day is to go in and try to figure out from the menu how they're going to get. What I wrote down was something like a mocha chocolate, a decaf skinny mocha chocolate chill. I mean, I was like, really? Frappuccino on the end of that. So just think about this. You know, where does a stereotype come from? Well, they're not new. They are rarely created. There is nothing in life that hasn't already been characterized, generalized, labeled, and put in some type of box that has limitations based on the culture in which it was evolved within and flowed without. So those stereotypes, they have a magnitude that they can encompass because we all know that stereotypes, in order to help us make sense of the differences in our races and ethnicity, the differences in the ages. We talk about the gender gap, or we talk about the age gap. Long time ago, I remember people talked about the age gap where, you know, and we're still talking about the age gap, but now we're talking about it in a different way and how it's impacting our ability to communicate, because we have people that never look up from their phone and those other people are standing there waiting for the face-to-face and it's not happening. So you have one generation that has a stereotype about what communication is supposed to look like. You have another generation in the middle, such as myself, that can flex, that can go either way, that I can engage in human communication face-to-face with the best of them. I can handle my oral communication such as I'm doing here. I can engage in written communication. If I need to put a little bit of silence in there, that fourth language, and do some nonverbal to get some attention, I know how to do it. But a lot of people have stereotypes about the way that something should happen, and they're not able to be as diverse in any category, no matter whether it comes to race, ethnicity, age, gender, sexual orientation, or any other characteristic. So they need the construct of a stereotype, which is really a label that they can attach that's socially and culturally designed to put those limitations on so that they understand how to use something or how to relate to something, a person or a place or a thing. Because if I didn't understand really the stereotype about something and the difference in that stereotype from something else, I'd be trying to use a water bottle to make a phone call, because, you know, there's certain characteristics of the water bottle, and I understand culturally from previous use. Like I said, a stereotype is not anything new. It's something you've seen before. They're not created. They recycle from subordinate places. So within your family, you know, you think about it, you live in a society that has a system and it has a set of rules. So within your family, you are a system, you have a set of rules, and then there are rewards and punishments for those. So what happens in order for us to be able to navigate the world and not be so stressed out, because again, we live in a pluralism society or a pluralistic society where there's so many choices for everything that we have to find a way to narrow things down, and we use those stereotypes in order for us to look back at something the way it looked before, make sense of it today so we understand what the hell we're supposed to do tomorrow with it. Because that's the problem, is you don't really know what the hell you're supposed to do unless you do a compare and contrast to something that has already happened. history. And that's one thing I've known in my life, is that I'm starting to see stuff loop back around. So it gets really scary, because when you start to see history really repeating itself, and you hear old songs and you start to really hear the new song and the old song, and it's just different lyrics, and you know all of this stuff, you know, it gets to be interesting. But that's the big thing about it, because when I went out to you know, thinking about how we use these stereotypes to understand anything that we're working with, I thought about how, you know, that it's really a lot of stuff is enveloped in opinion, you know, opinion regarding characteristics, because everything is subjective. It's subject to what's happening at that moment with the person and what's going on. So depending on how I feel today, I might want a decaf skinny vanilla latte, and I might want it in a grande. But tomorrow I might want peach lemonade infused tea. And so when I come in, I have to have some type of a label, and I have to have some stereotypical preconceived notion and set idea and imagery of what they're going to put in that cup. Otherwise, I'm going to look up on that Starbucks or wherever label I'm going, and I'm going to lose my mind. So I need something to help me navigate through. So even with the role of a grandmother, the way that I see that they put a label on anything is to help us to maintain the status quo. Definition is about the norms that are associated with a specific label. So under the umbrella of grandma, I'm enveloped into specific characteristics based on what my age threshold. So if I'm under 50, usually I'm gonna be given some latitude about, you know, if my dress is a little bit more risque, or if my hair or something is deemed to be too light. But shoot, blondes have more fun. Let's keep it real, people. Blondes have more fun. And besides, I like who I am, so it's all good. But in any case, you have limitations placed on you, whether it be your familial understanding of what the cultural norms for that family are, or social norms, or it could be workplace or what have you. But people want to have limitations on how someone could present themselves based on a label. So for me, that's not going to work. I basically say, again, that according to theorist Alport in 1954, where he performed categorization functions, he said basically it's just the need of stereotypes is help us to simplify an overstimulating universe. Again, people talk about the numerous communication messages coming at you when you get ready to go do something, the 50 gazillion different types of car choices that you have right now, and not only American cars, but then now you have all these different foreign models. Not to mention that a Chevy is not just a Chevy with functional things like a horn, a windshield, doors and locks, but now a Chevy is functional because it needs airbags, and you might want to have all of these special windshield wipers, and it's tinted, and it's your USB port and all of the digital devices that now are imported into the car or made as part of the car that are just part of the functionality of the car, and people don't just see that they can live without it. Because you try to sell somebody a car and it's just got a radio in it. That was a stereotype of a car from 1957 through maybe 1968. And then, of course, we had 8-track tapes. So when somebody talks about 8-track tapes, there's a stereotype about the limitations of the quality of music and, you know, the horror that happens when you pull that tape out and it gets stuck in there. And then you got cassette tapes. And of course you had, you know, your vinyl records, but you also have the evolution of what people think a quadraphonic stereo, or how things are going to evolve. So everything is stereotypical and it has some type of characteristic. But where I draw the line is when somebody tries to take a label, put it on a human, and limit the characteristics or limit the possibilities for that person's life, because we all have a purpose in life. And the fact of the matter is only you know what that purpose is. And it's not up to me or anybody else to tell you that when you reach a certain age that you need to stop, start, or continue doing certain things. That's not up to me. So people want everything else simplified because, you know, we have so many choices in life. And that's why they really want to simplify the grandma label. So again, now I rest my case. Now that you understand the role of a stereotype that is basically to help you to to navigate through life, because there's so much coming through you, to you, at you, for you to do, I tell you to take the stereotypical construct, utilize it for what it is. But when you're really getting ready to make a decision about what something means or how the limitations are going to be imposed, choose wisely, because you never know. There is a boomerang effect. The limitations that we set upon others may come back, and that same stereotype may come back to haunt you later. So I want to know what your frequency is about stereotypes in general. Have you ever had something that you really couldn't figure out as far as a stereotype, or do you really understand that it's just these three things? That again, it's a preconceived notion about anything that you can think of. There are set ideas about how that should look or be. And the fact of the matter is you have some type of an imagery in mind. Again, everything goes back to visioning for us in order to manifest anything. And so you hear a lot about the law of attraction. So be careful what you vision, and be careful how you using a stereotype to shape the vision that you have for your future and anything else, because you understand what the power of labels is and how those labels can help you to formulate a notion about what it is that you can do, be, or aspire to be. And then you get locked into limitations, and you don't want to limit yourself. You really want to set yourself up for success and understand that, one, the universe has an abundance of everything, any and everything that we want. But again, we have to understand what we really want, sit down, think about it, and utilize the stereotypes to help us shape the exact definition and description of the way that we want our vision to unfold and manifest. So again, with that being said, as you go in and you decide what stereotype you're going to use to shape your future and your vision and set that imagery for your life, I tell you, choose wisely. This is your host, Eldridge, signing off. And again, I want to see you next week at 8 o'clock on Tuesday on Voices, where we want to know what's your frequency. Thank you.